Hello students, this is Harveer, your English teacher. Today we are going to discuss chapter number 10 of your book First Flight, that is The Sermon at Benares. This chapter, The Sermon at Benares, is written by Betty Louise Renshaw Barber, who was born in Shannon, Mississippi on September 3, 1927 to PC and Lillian Renshaw. After graduating valedictorian from Shannon High School, she went on to obtain her Bachelor of Arts degree from Mississippi College and later a Master of Arts from Mississippi University for Women. As we know, the title of the chapter is The Sermon at Benares. Benares is the name of the place. So what is sermon? Sermon is a preaching. It is a religious talk by hermit or sage. So this chapter is about the misery of life and death. So the misery of life and death always baffles us, confuses us. When we lose someone near and dear, we are sad. This lesson teaches us that death is the ultimate truth. This lesson is about the early life of Gautam Buddha and his first sermon preached at Benares. A woman who had lost her son in grief went to Buddha and pleaded him to bring his son back to life. Let us read the lesson and find how Gautam Buddha taught the lady that death is inevitable. Gautam Buddha began life as a prince named Siddhartha Gautam in northern India. So, Gautam was a prince, later he became a monk and he was a founder of the Buddhism. He was believed to live during the 563 BC to 483 BC. He was a prince and his name was Siddhartha Gautam and he was born in northern India. At 12, he was sent away for schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures and 4 years later he returned home to marry a princess. So at 12, he was sent away for schooling. And what did he learn? He learned all the Hindu sacred scriptures. Scriptures are the holy books. And after completing his studies, so how many years did he take to complete his study? 4 years. He returned home. So when he was 16, he returned home and then he married a princess. They had a son and lived for 10 years as befitted royalty. So, as he was a prince, he lived a happy life with his wife. As he was a prince, he lived a happy life with his wife and he had a son as well. They lived very happily and led a royal life. What is the meaning of royal life? Enjoying all kingly pleasures and riches. He was indeed a prince and with his wife and son, he led a very royal life, not knowing any kind of suffering. He got everything whatever he wanted. At about the age of 25, the prince, heretofore shielded from the sufferings of the world, while out hunting, chanced upon a sick man, then an aged man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. So what happened? At the age of 25, he heretofore mean until then. So till the age of 25, he did not know the meaning of suffering. We saw that he was leading a very happy life, very princely life. He got all the happiness of the world. He never saw anybody suffering. So what happened at the age of 25, he went for hunting and while going for hunting he saw different kinds of people. What are the kinds of people he saw? He saw a sick man, then he saw an old man, then he also saw a funeral procession. Somebody was dead and they were taking the dead body for cremation. So that is the funeral procession. And then he also saw a monk begging for alms. Monk is a sage or hermit, so he was begging for alms, asking money from people so that he can have some food or something. So all these kinds of sufferings he saw for the first time when he was 25 years old as he was going for hunting. These sights so moved him that he at once went out into the world to seek enlightenment concerning the sorrows he had witnessed. So, what happened? The moment he saw all these kinds of sufferings, because until then he was not known what is suffering, and when he saw these kinds of sufferings, he wanted to find out the reasons. So, he went out into the world. He left all his royalty and went away from there in order to find out the meaning of this sorrow and this death, to get the knowledge about these concerns. He wandered for 7 years and finally sat down under a peepal tree where he vowed to stay until enlightenment came. So he left the worldly possessions and he started wandering about. So he went here and there in search of understanding. He wanted to understand what are the causes, why people are suffering, why people are dying. So he wandered here and there and finally sat under a peepal tree when he vowed where he vowed to stay until enlightenment came. That is, he vowed, that means he swore that he will not get up from there until he found out the meaning of all these sorrows. Enlightened after 7 days, he renamed the tree the Bodhi tree, the tree of wisdom, and began to teach and to share his new understandings. So he sat down under this tree for 7 days. So after 7 days, the understanding came to him. That means he became enlightened. And then from there on, he started to teach people and he began to share whatever he understand to all the people. So the name Buddha is one who is awakened or enlightened. And from that moment, people started knowing him as Buddha. The Buddha preached his first sermon at the city of Benares, most holy of the dipping places on the river Ganges. That sermon has been preserved and is given here. It reflects the Buddha's wisdom about one inscrutable kind of suffering. So, Buddha gave his first sermon from the city of Benares. Where is Benares? Benares is the old name and now it is known as the Varanasi, which is situated on the banks of the river Ganga. So, we are going to look at the sermon that he had given at Benares. So, in this sermon, as I told you, it is preaching and teaching about some values, moral principles. So, in this, we are going to understand one of the inscrutable kind of suffering. Inscrutable means something that is difficult to understand. So, there are different kinds of suffering, and this sermon is about one such kind of suffering. Kissa Gautami had an only son and he died. So it is the story of one of the villages. The lady called Kissa Gautami who had only son, and what happened to her son? Somehow he died. In her grief, she carried the dead child to all her neighbors, asking them for medicine. And the people said, "She has lost her senses. The boy is dead." So Kissa Gautami was so grief stricken, she was so sad that she carried a dead child to all the neighbors' houses. She started asking from all of them some kind of medicine to revive her son. Can you revive a dead person? No, you cannot. So this fact the lady could not understand, and she kept on going to all the neighbors' houses to ask for medicine to revive her dead son. And what did all the neighbors say? They said that she had lost her senses, that means she is mad. At length, Kissa Gautami met a man who replied to her request. "I cannot give thee medicine for thy child, but I know a physician who can." So, what happened? As she was asking people about medicine, then one person replied to her request and said that he could not give any medicine for her child, but he knew a physician. A physician is a doctor. He said that he knew a person who would be able to help her. And the girl said, "Pray tell me, sir, who's it?" And the man replied, "Go to Sakyamuni, the Buddha." And the girl wanted to know who's it, who is that person who could help her in her grief. So the person told her to go to Sakyamuni, the Buddha. The Buddha is also called as Sakyamuni. Kissa Gautami repaired to the Buddha and cried, "Lord and Master, give me the medicine that will cure my boy." So, what did she do? She went straight to Buddha and she requested him to listen to her and what request did she make? She requested him to give her a medicine to cure her dead son. The Buddha answered, I want a handful of mustard seed, and when the girl in her joy promised to procure it, the Buddha added, the mustard seed must be taken from a house where no one has lost a child, husband, parent, or friend. So, what did the Buddha reply? He said, okay, I would help you, but you must do something. So, what did she has to do? She had to bring a handful of mustard seeds, and she was very happy. She promised him to procure mean to bring it. But as soon as she was ready to go, Buddha asked something. He said she must bring mustard seed from the house where no one has died till now, not even a friend, a husband, a child, or a parent. So, this is the condition that Buddha gave to Kissa Gautami. Poor Kissa Gautami now went from house to house, and the people pitied her and said, here is mustard seed, take it. But when she asked, did a son or daughter, a father or mother die in your family? They answered her, alas, the living are few, but the dead are many. Do not remind us of our deepest grief. And there was no house, but some beloved one had died in it. So, what happened? This lady went from one house to another asking for a handful of mustard seeds. Everybody was ready to give the mustard seed. But then she asked the second question. What is the second question? Did anybody die in this family? Then everybody answered, not to remind them about their greatest sorrow. So there was no house where nobody has never died. So she could not find a house where there was no death at all. Kisagotami became weary and hopeless and sat down at the wayside watching the lights of the city as they flickered up and were extinguished again. So Kisagotami became very tired and she did not have any hope of finding a house where no one had died. So she sat on the way and was just watching the city lights. They were flickering up and extinguished. So flickering up itself says it is not the gas lights that we have it must have been flames, so it must have been lights lit by fire. Because of the wind they were flickering and they were extinguishing, mean they were put off. The lights are put off and all that because of a wind. At last, the darkness of the night reigned everywhere, and she considered the fate of men, that their lives flicker up and are extinguished again. So, once all the lights went off, what happened? There was total darkness, and she considered the fate of men, that their lives also flicker up and extinguished again. So, by looking at these flickering and extinguishing lights, she understood the life of a man, that it is also similar to this. That means it keeps flickering and at last it gets extinguished. It means man live for some time and finally he loses his life. And she thought to herself, how selfish am I in my grief? Death is common to all, yet in this valley of desolation there is a path that leads him to immortality who has surrendered all selfishness. So, by looking at those lights, she understood that death is inevitable, mean you cannot control death. Everybody who is born must die one day, and she thought that she became selfish in her sorrow, that when she was sad she thought about herself only, not about the universal truth. So she understood that nobody can escape from death, it is common to all, and one can become immortal by surrendering all the selfishness. So if you are selfless, you can become immortal. The Buddha said, the life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief and combined with pain. So, what did Buddha tell? He told her the life of a mortal What is the meaning of mortal? Somebody who has life and death. So we all are mortal, and the life of mortals is combined with trouble, grief, and pain. So the world is full of troubles and grief. For there is not any means by which those that have been born can avoid dying. After reaching old age, there is death. Of such a nature are living beings. So, Buddha also said that all who have been born on this earth cannot do anything with death. That is, they cannot avoid death. So, death is sure for all. So, living beings should understand that one who is born will die one day. As ripe fruits are early in danger of falling, so mortals, when born, are always in danger of death. So, when the fruit becomes ripe, we know that one day it will surely fall. So, similarly, mortals, that mean the human beings or people who have birth and death, they are always in the danger of dying because no one can escape death. As all earthen vessels made by the potter and in being broken, so is the life of mortals. So he is also giving one beautiful example of the earthen pots. All these pots are made up of clay. The clay pots will also be broken one day. They cannot remain as such. So it is similar to the life of mortals. All the mortals have to die one day. Both young and adult, both those who are fools and those who are wise, all fall into the power of death. All are subject to death. So he is saying, whoever it is, whether they are young or whether they are old or whether they are clever or whether they are fool, everybody will have to die one day. Those who, overcome by death, depart from life, a father cannot save his son, nor kinsmen their relations. Mark. So, what is he saying? Even if you are able to overcome by death, depart from life, nobody can save his son. So, even a dead person or a person who has overcome all these sorrows and griefs cannot save somebody's kinsmen, mean relations, from dying. While relatives are looking on and lamenting deeply, one by one mortals are carried off like an ox that is led to the slaughter. So he's saying that everybody, if one person die and all of them are looking at and feeling sorrow and showing their grief, they all should understand that each and every one will have to die one day and will be taken to the slaughterhouse. Like if you go to a cattle shed and see how one by one these cows or ox may be taken to slaughter to be killed. So, like that, each mortal or each human being will also die one day, so nobody can escape death. So, what is the Buddha telling? He is telling that the whole world is afflicted. Afflicted means affected. Whole world is affected by death and decay. That means everything will die one day, or everything will become decayed one day. So, the wise people, who are the wise people, who can understand everything and who knows about the truth, so they do not worry about dying because they know that it is the fact one cannot escape from. Not from weeping nor from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, his pain will be the greater and his body will suffer. So, if you keep on crying, you may not get peace of mind. So, when you're worried about something, if you keep on crying, what will happen? It will only affect your health, it will only affect your body and your mind. You're not going to get any kind of relief. He will make himself sick and pale, yet the dead are not saved by his lamentation. So, if you keep on crying, you will become sick, you will become pale, and this crying will not help anyone to escape from death. So, there is no use of lamentation or crying over all these things. You have to understand that death is part of life. He who seeks peace should draw out the arrow of lamentation and complaint and grief. So, if you think you want peace, you must come out of this complaint mode and crying mode and grief mode. That means you should never cry, you should not be complaining, You should not sit worried, so only then you can come out of this kind of sorrow, and then you will get peace. He who has drawn out the arrow and has become composed will obtain peace of mind. He who has overcome all sorrow will become free from sorrow and be blessed. So, if you're composed, that means if you're able to control all your emotions, you will be able to attain peace of mind and you will get the blessings of the God. So, try to overcome all these things. Understand that death is a part of life and do not sit and cry and lament because it will make you more sick. So try to come out of all these, and it is only then you'll be able to attain peace of mind. So this is the advice given by Gautam Buddha to Kissa Gautami because she was grieving over the death of her son. Hope this chapter is clear to you now. Thank you.